Hello, and welcome to my channel. So, I gotta admit, you guys, April has been kind of a tough month emotionally. I don't know if that's the truth for everybody, but I know it's the truth for me. And so I've tried to maybe kind of keep the content. I don't know. I'm posting one more video this month, tomorrow, and well, on my main channel, and then I'll post some things over on Patreon. But yeah, I hope May has some better vibes and my content's a little more upbeat. But since we're here in this emotional space, I did want to talk about this because a subscriber sent me this information and I wanted a chance to respond to it. It's a story that went viral on Twitter about a week ago. When it first popped up on my timeline, I ignored it for a couple reasons. The first reason is that I could tell it was a Black woman that was writing about it. And she started off by saying, I want everyone to know what the father of my child did to me. And I was like, oop, she's about to get vulnerable. And she's a Black woman talking about failed motherhood. She didn't say my husband, she did, people, and I'll get into all those little bits and pieces in a second about why that stuff like caused an alarm with me. But most importantly, she's a Black woman about to get vulnerable, and I am afraid for her. We all know how I feel about that. I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it works really well for some people, and for some people, no. Then I saw she was talking about motherhood. And as somebody who really wanted to be a mother in this lifetime and most likely won't get the opportunity to, I'm very, very sensitive with any stories about losing a child. When people talk about infertility, when people talk about, stillbirth, like anything like that really, really messes with me. Then it was sent to me and I said, let me take a look. And it was so funny because while I was taking a look at the story, like looking it back up again, one of the young women that I follow on YouTube, and I followed her for years, she goes by the name I Am Eloho. I will link her video about the situation below, but she posted about the story. And if you're the type of person who, because I'm not going to go through and read the tweets. I mean, it is horrible. It is a real life horror story. It is horrible. And I'm not gonna do that here. But she did. She went through and she read all the tweets, and then she does like a prayer at the end. It was very well done. So I will link her below. But she did a video about it, and I went to her comment section because I was expecting there to be an issue. Because here's the deal. A lot of times when a Black woman talks about a problem that she's had with a man, specifically the father of her child who did not perform in the way that she expected. And of course, the situation is evil and it defies all expectations. But most of the time, the response is, well, that's why you got to pick better men. You got to pick better men, sis. You got to do better. That's on you. And I said to myself, if one person says this about this woman, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to lose it. But luckily, I went to her comment section, and over again, people were just compassion, compassion, compassion. I cannot believe that this happened to this young lady. Because if you look at the young woman that it's about, she was college educated. She was very intelligent, beautiful girl. She had been with this dude and known him for a long time. This is not somebody that probably ever imagined what could have happened to her. And so that's what I kind of want to hit on in this video a little bit. This idea that in a society where we're expected to immediately assume fault for any situation that doesn't turn out in our advantage, how that damages the narrative that we tell about ourselves and about each other, and how that also damages the way that we respond to each other in situations where somebody has been hurt. Now, again, I'm very proud about how everybody responded to this young woman, but it shouldn't have to be that something this evil happens to somebody for people to say to themselves, maybe sometimes there's more than one reason why things fail. Maybe it's not always just the woman. And the reason I say that again is because a lot of times I'll be on social media, especially when you're talking about women that are single mothers. And if they say one thing, if they complain about one thing, the reaction. Well, that's why you should have waited until you were married. You know, what do I see a lot of the times? Marry before you carry. That's why then you wouldn't have issues. And people completely ignore that, such as in this woman's situation. People represent themselves as something else. They represent their character as something else before they get married. Ever since we're little kids, we're taught whatever we have is up to us. Whatever we don't have is on us as well. And as a result, a lot of people really struggle with, but hey, I did this. I did everything I was supposed to do, and yet. But hey, I chose this. I did everything, and yet. And then we're extra. We have no compassion and no grace for anyone that when we look at their situation, well, you could have done this, actually. Well, you could have done that, actually. And we ignore the fact that a lot of people have the things they have because they have been allowed to have them. It reminds me of and I know, I have people that watch my channel that aren't especially religious, or, they don't maybe follow the Christian religion or whatever. I myself am somewhat liberal by a lot of those standards. But one of the best Bible verses that I ever learned when I was growing up in the church was Proverbs 19:21, which was, there are many plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's promise that will prevail. And whenever I'm looking at my own life and I'm like, oh, you could have done this, you could have done that, I think, well, this person got to that point and they did half of what you did. Well, this person never moved a muscle and they were able to. We need to sometimes take ourselves out of the driver's seat of every event that occurs in our lives and understand that some things happen because they happen. And there's very little we can do to control the outcome. Now, I'm not saying look at it that way all the time, but definitely in situations where you did your best, give yourself a little bit of grace. This whole situation also reminded me of another person that I used to watch on YouTube all the time. I only don't watch her on YouTube because she no longer posts here because, people chased her away. Well, I don't think that. I think she just doesn't want to post anymore. But Jackie Ina, makeup guru extraordinaire, is now mostly posting on TikTok and Reels. And she made a video last month, I think it was, and she said, you are not always what you attract. And basically in the video, she was saying, you have kind people that attract takers. You have really wise people that attract idiots. You have really well-meaning, well-intentioned people that attract evil. And I believe that sometimes you attract not necessarily what you are, but what someone needs from you or what someone feels they can get from you. When I went through a situation in my past, I was going to therapy and I was told, I want you to understand that this person looked at you and because of the evil within them, saw you as a target. You are good. They were not. So please don't look at yourself and say, oh, well, because they were this type of person, that must mean no. I'm listening to you. I'm talking to you. I'm hearing you describe their actions. You were the perfect target for what they wanted to carry out. You are not what you attracted. And so this situation reminded me of that video. And even yet another example of the fact that, you could go out in the world and you can be this well-educated, beautiful, well-intentioned, wonderful person and just run into evil. And that brings me to my last point. This young woman, if you read through all of her tweets and the things that she talks about happened to her, she fought for that baby to be here. And it didn't happen. And what's interesting to me is that if the baby had have gotten here, if it had have worked out, she might have come across on social media, why didn't you marry before you carried? What if she had to marry this dude, right? They had gotten married and all this, and then he'd done this to her, which happens to people. But anyway, there would have been people that would have been like, a single mom, we can't have no more black single moms, But she fought for that baby to be here. And one of the things that I hope for her is that she doesn't hold that for too long, that she doesn't hold guilt, that she doesn't hold that shame. A lot of the times, I think because of the society we live in and because of what we're taught, when things don't go our way, what did I do? What could I have done? How did I? And this whole thing reminded me of the movie Good Will Hunting, and that comparison might be cringe to some of you, but In the movie, there's a character named Will, played by Matt Damon, and he's got some emotional behavior problems. He's got some oppositional defiant issues. He's kind of a pariah and an outcast in society, except for this really close group of friends he has. And he is so smart. And one day, someone who's working at Harvard, where he goes to school, they see him working out a really complicated math problem on a board. If you've seen the movie, you've seen it. And so they say, hey, I want to work with you, but they can't work with him because he has such a long list of criminal, things that he's done. I mean, he's a criminal, and the only jobs that he can get and the only places he can get into are these really low level gigs because he's done all these things. And so the guy who wants to work with him works it out with the court system, and he says, if I can get this guy to go to therapy, will you guys let me do what I want to do? And they say, yeah. So he gets into therapy with Robin Williams as his therapist, and they're going back and forth. And it's a great movie, and it's filled with so many great monologues and great conversations. But the best one is kind of towards the end, where Robin Williams is holding a file, and Will comes into his office, and Will says, what is that? You got my file there. And the file is his history of being abused as a kid. And it's all the things that happened to him when he was way too innocent and too young to protect himself against this evil. And Robin Williams just says, yeah, I got it. And he starts going down the list with him of things that had happened to him as a child, that happened to Will. And, Will's trying to joke about it, yeah, whatever, it's fine, whatever. And Robin Williams looks at him and he says, it's not your fault. And Will is like, oh, I know, of course, I know it's not my fault, of course. And he's like, it's not your fault. And he just keeps repeating it until finally Will breaks. And all these years of holding that shame, that question of what did I do to deserve this, come out of him. And it's such a powerful scene. And if you've never seen the movie, I'll link the scene below. But I hope that that's what she holds with her. I hope that's the only thing she holds. This happened because evil exists in the world. People that mean us no good are walking around all the time. You didn't attract this because you were in some way wrong. It wasn't just as simple as picking better men, because I'm pretty sure you never could have imagined, like a lot of women that end up in unsavory situations, you never could have imagined that this was even a possibility. And at the end of the day, it's not your fault. And I have to once again congratulate the internet for the way that she was responded to, that compassion and that grace and that just hope that she heals. And that's it. And I just wish that same, and again, this is so evil that I think a lot of people are just shocked. They're shocked into compassion, right? But it shouldn't take that much for someone to say, when they see somebody going through something, when they see, a woman that's like, man, I thought that, but it turned out. And so now it shouldn't take something this evil for people to say, whew, I'm sorry. That can happen. It's not necessarily because you did anything wrong or that you're wrong and that you just weren't trying to pick. I see what you were trying to do. It's not your fault. It's not always true. Sometimes people can do better. I'm not saying accountability is not important, but I am saying that I'd like to see the kind of compassion that's been extended to this woman. I'd like to see it happen more often. And I'd like to see it happen even when the outcome wasn't this egregious and the action wasn't this evil. So yeah, this story definitely rocked me a little bit, and I didn't necessarily want to say anything, but then this occurred to me. So I was like, let me hop on here with my bare eyelids, which, people are going to talk about you anyway. So if you're ready, if y'all made up, y'all made up. If you're not, you're not. But I did want to go ahead and say that about this story. Again, I will link Eloho's video below. I'll also link Jackie's video below because I think she made some good points. And as always, thanks for watching.